Diablo Joe reviews The Sound of Summer. The people of Japan describe the piercing, incessant din of their seasonal insect population as the sound of summer. Cicada have become a part of the Japanese culture and mindset, indelibly linked to the country's oppressive, mind-numbing summer heat and humidity. Cicada are both beloved. After all, catching them is a long-held childhood pastime and an annoyance to the Japanese. The Sound of Summer is the first feature from anonymous auteur filmmaker Guy. His film follows a young woman, identified only as the protagonist, working in a small cafe in an unnamed Japanese city. The repetition of her day-to-day life and job becomes upended by the arrival of a mysterious mute client to her shop. Face hidden by a scarf bearing a catching net and numerous insect cages, the protagonist and her co-worker dub him the Cicada Man. Soon, incited by the ceaselessly droning sound of summer, the protagonist begins to convince herself that the Cicada Man has placed the insects into her body. As her mental state unravels, she attacks and mutilates herself in a quest to prove her suspicions correct, drawing herself closer to a terrifying and unnerving truth. With The Sound of Summer, Guy has delivered an unsettling and effective entry into the body horror genre. His film opens with a raucous, thrashy metal song over the credits, but this blast of musical energy segues into scenes of an almost numbing mundanity as we follow the protagonist through her typical life as a young Japanese woman. The first quarter of sound is so blandly ordinary that slow burn is perhaps too vivid a term to describe it, as it almost lulls us into no burn. As the shrill summer buzzing of the cicada around her begins to drive the protagonist into a fever pitch of paranoid obsession, the film starts to wrap the audience in her madness. As she scratches and probes in every place in her body to rid herself of the insects she is convinced are inside her, our view of the story becomes more and more hallucinogenic. Guy's increasingly disorienting wide-angle extreme close-ups and manic visuals perfectly capture the protagonist's disjointed mental state as she uncovers the Cicada Man's secrets. But it's the filmmaker's use of sound that grabs us brutally, dragging us into this spiral of psychosis. Guy has found a perfect collaborator in electronic musician Microchip Terror, whose nightmarish soundtrack, combined with Guy's cacophonous sound editing, perfectly captures the inescapable madness of anyone who has spent extended time in cicada country experiences, only tenfold, and on acid. As timidly as the film opens, it closes with a phantasmagoria of surreal imagery that is simultaneously savagely unsettling and strangely poetic. The Sound of Summer might compel some to attempt to interject all sorts of sexual symbolism into it. After all, it is the male of the species alone that is responsible for the cicada's monotonous song. Or ponder just how much of the horror we witness is real, or only the protagonist's madness, an answer the film potentially clues us into midway through. But this film should be best experienced by an audience willing to let it suck them into its feverish miasma of terror and paranoia. Or maybe it will leave them with no other choice. This devil of a reviewer gives The Sound of Summer 4 out of 5 imps.